Growing up, my life seemed pretty normal. I had a mom and a dad and a beautiful little sister. I was a fairly good student as a kid and a cheerleader all my life. Everyone thought I was just a shy little girl, but every time I would get home from school every day, I felt like I was walking into a burning house. It felt like I was burning alive every time I'd walk through that door, as if I would have gasoline pumping through my bloodstream and my brain was constantly on fire. At home, that little girl was a caregiver to her obese father with a binge eating disorder, a food addiction which led to his death. She was a blank canvas for her mother to splatter words all over her like paint, a failed protector of her younger sister. I struggled with depression as a kid and never really talked much, but that's because silence was my alibi. If I stayed quiet, no one would notice me, especially my mother. Eventually, my mother kicked me out due to her unstable mental condition. That led to me couch surfing at my grandparents' and friends' houses. And that worked for a couple months until CPS got involved after my mother took herself off as my parental guardian on my high school record. I was informed by my friends' parents they could no longer take care of me, and I could no longer stay with my grandparents solely because they lived in a 65-plus living community. So, social workers swept me away and put me into the care of a stranger. Well, the worst part about it was having to pretend like everything was fine, that everything was normal. My life was crumbling into little bits and pieces, and no one even noticed. It took a major emotional and mental toll on my life, having to pretend like everything was okay in front of my peers, colleagues, and other adults in my life. It felt like I was hiding this huge secret from everyone around me. Now, I want you to imagine a story just like mine, but that same pain I felt applies to 400,000 other foster youth in America. This doesn't even include the foster youth that have aged out of the foster care system. Well, now you're probably thinking to yourself, Emma, isn't that a good thing? Shouldn't we just remove the child from the negative environment that they're in? Yes, of course we should. But we shouldn't just take the child out of a mentally distressing home. We need to provide them a long-term solution that will benefit these kids. Child abuse and neglect are prominent issues in today's society. And the foster care system is enabling this vicious cycle on many of these kids by putting them in homes with new abusers and neglectful caregivers. Even if the child is placed in a home with a guardian that cares about their well-being, they still aren't receiving proper mental health services to help reconcile their trauma. Instead, there are hundreds of thousands of foster youth that aren't receiving these proper services. And the worst thing about it is that they did nothing to deserve this. They just wanted to exist, but now they have to suffer the consequences of someone else's actions. Yes, taking a child out of an abusive household stops the problem, but it does not put out that fire. That fire still burns brightly in here. This is where the real pain is. That burning house you lived in still resides within your soul, replaying those memories over and over again, and you feel the flame burning you from the inside out until you just can't take it anymore. Until these kids start to combust and show their pain through destructive behavior, through failing classes, dropping out of school entirely, self-harm, substance abuse, unsafe sex, bullying, committing crimes, and suicide, and the list goes on. Even after being a part of this corrupt system for 2.5 years, it still affects everyone in similar ways. You feel lost, you feel betrayed, you feel like no one in this world will understand you. You feel rejected, and you feel hurt and afraid of being hurt again and again and again. And you're jealous of kids whose families get to celebrate their birthdays with them, or get to help them get their driver's license, or watch them graduate high school, or even play catch in the backyard. And you wish for just a moment that you had the same joy that family brings people around you for just a moment. As a former foster youth and child abuse survivor, taking care of your mental health is crucial for trauma victims to continue to succeed and grow from their pain. The trauma I went through was evident in my poor mental health and the development of my PTSD, which only intensified after I entered the foster care system. I was very fortunate enough to receive care. However, therapeutic care is not in everyone else's cards. Over 80% of foster youth struggle with significant mental health issues, and they are also 5 times as more likely to develop PTSD compared to the average adult, and twice as likely compared to war veterans. People of all sorts struggle with finding adequate therapy services, Yet, mental health services are even less accessible to those in foster care. This limits the positive outlet for foster youth to reconcile with their trauma and make it through what will probably be the most challenging moments of their lives. In a study done by Dr. June Clausen, she found that most foster youth will never experience therapeutic care from a licensed therapist, and the ones that do often end up seeing multiple therapists, causing discontinuity and confusion, which affects the quality and effectiveness of care. In order to help these kids with their mental health, we need to push for mandated therapy just as much as the state pushes for mandated physical health checkups and doctor's visits. Through organizations like John Burton's Advocates for Foster Youth, we can inform those about the faults in the foster care system and gain support to fight for more mental health resources from our government. This long-term solution is possible, however, it will take time to be implemented. So, how can we help these children in the meantime? Well, the stigma of foster care children is real. We are labeled by our circumstances, and that affects our mental health. We are put into a box and then hidden from plain sight because no one wants to talk about what's going on in the foster care system. But we can try to counteract these negative effects by creating a safe environment for foster youth that will help them thrive. My last foster family was my friend Caitlin and his parents that decided to take me in. Janet and Patrick and Caitlin are some of the most kind, caring, generous people that I've ever met. Janet and Patrick helped me not only with getting through high school, going off to college, and financial support, as well as help being involved in my personal life by coming and supporting me at my cheer competitions, going to football games, and even taking pictures at my high school dances. We need more people like Patrick and Janet in this world. So if you are able and willing to foster a child, I strongly encourage you to do so. But being a foster parent isn't meant for everyone. If becoming a foster caregiver is not the path for you, you can become a CASA. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and this is a volunteer program where you are assigned a foster youth to spend quality one-on-one time with in hopes of forming a special bond with them. Being a CASA, you can create stability in a child's life while they undergo tons of change. You can also advocate for them at their court hearings to help keep the child's best interests and desires as the first priority. As a society, we can create a safer environment for foster youth by using more inclusive language as well. For example, children often hear in school, "Tell your parents this," or "Ask your parents that," from their school faculty and teachers. Or they see the dreaded class syllabus or field trip form that asks for a parent's signature. The lack of inclusive language causes feelings of not fitting in and being ostracized for not having something that was taken away from them. We should start to add guardians and caregivers into these lists, references, and our everyday vocabulary to include those aren't a part of a nuclear family. By making these small changes, we are making a huge difference in the eyes of foster youth. Another way we can also help is by asking respectful questions and letting these youth share their story. If we do this, we can practice empathy and show these kids what it's like to tell their story to others. These kids have a lot to say, but not many people that will listen to them. Just by letting these kids share about their past and their current struggles, it can provide them with a sense of comfort and personal growth and wellness. A simple act of kindness can make all of the difference to these kids. So let's be honest. We can't do much to get rid of abuse in every single home. But we can offer these kids resources to cope, manage their mental health, and get them back on the right path. But we need to break this stigma as well and put out these childhood house fires. Acknowledging that not everyone has parents, but they have guardians and caregivers as soft replacements to fill that void. We need to rethink what family looks like for everyone. We need to let these kids share their stories to help them without judgment so they can feel heard and cared for, to help them find their voice like I have found mine. That little girl is all grown up anymore, and now I am using my voice to help others find theirs. Thank you.